Everyone knows Marilyn Monroe, the flawless icon and the ultimate sex symbol. But before the fame, she was Norma Jean, an abandoned daughter who shuffled through foster homes, marked by trauma long before Hollywood dyed her hair and gave her a new name. What really happened behind the image millions adored? To truly understand her fate, we have to start with the damage that came first. Norma Jean Mortensen was born on June 1st, 1926, in Los Angeles, a city already shimmering with Hollywood dreams. But her earliest days were shaped by instability, not glamour. Her mother, Gladys Baker, worked as a film cutter but struggled with mental illness. Hospital records and social worker files document repeated psychiatric crises, and by the time Norma Jean was a toddler, Gladys was in and out of institutions, sometimes vanishing for months. There was no father in the picture. The name on her birth certificate changed more than once. The man believed to be her biological father, Stanley Gifford, never played a role in her life. With her mother unable to care for her, Norma Jean was passed from one foster home to another. Between 1935 and 1942, she cycled through at least 10 different placements, including a stint at the Los Angeles Orphans Home. The official records from these years describe a child who was quiet, shy, and often afraid. She was sometimes cared for by family friends, sometimes by strangers. Each move came without warning. There was no permanent bed, no sense of safety, and no guarantee that anyone would return for her. The effect was lasting. Even as a child, Norma Jean learned that love could vanish overnight, and that belonging was something you had to earn or perform for. She watched other children leave with parents who never came for her. She grew up with the knowledge that her own mother was alive but unreachable, locked behind the walls of a psychiatric hospital. These early years left deep scars, anxiety, a hunger for approval, and a constant fear of abandonment. The world would one day know her as Marilyn Monroe, but the foundation was always this: a little girl left to wonder why she was never chosen. In 1944, a U.S. Army photographer named David Conover visited the radio plane factory in Burbank, searching for faces to boost wartime morale. On the assembly line, he found Norma Jean, 20, brunette, and unknown. His photographs circulated quickly, opening doors to pin-up modeling and soon after a contract with 20th Century Fox. This was the moment of discovery. The studio had a formula. Norma Jean's hair became platinum blonde. Her name vanished and was replaced by Marilyn Monroe, a choice made by Fox executives and publicity staff. Studio records show the transformation was deliberate: a marketable name, a new look, and a carefully crafted persona. Publicity photos, makeup tests, and contract memos from the late 1940s reveal a process of shaping her into a product. One designed to stand out in a crowded field of starlets. By 1953, the gamble paid off. Niagara launched her as a sex symbol, and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire locked her into the dumb blonde archetype. Box office numbers soared, and her image on posters, in magazines, on billboards became inescapable. Every detail, from her walk to her laughter, was rehearsed and repeated for the cameras. Behind the scenes, studio memos focused on how to maximize her appeal and how to keep the Monroe brand profitable. The world saw glamour, but the machinery behind it was relentless. Marilyn Monroe was no longer a person in the eyes of the studio. She was a commodity, engineered, packaged, and sold to the public, with little room left for the woman she once was. In 1955, Marilyn Monroe left Los Angeles for New York, stepping away from the manufactured world of studio contracts and into the heart of American theater. She enrolled at the Actors Studio, led by Lee Strasberg, whose reputation for shaping great dramatic talent drew the most ambitious performers of the era. There, Monroe sat beside Marlon Brando and Paul Newman, learning to strip away artifice and reach for emotional truth. Attendance records and correspondence from the time show her dedication. She was not a tourist in the world of serious acting, but a student determined to master her craft. That same year, she founded Marilyn Monroe Productions, a move that startled Hollywood's old guard. The company's charter, filed in October 1955, made her one of the first women in the industry to demand creative control over her own career. This was more than a business decision. It was a declaration of independence from a system that had dictated her every move for nearly a decade. Her determination paid off. In 1956, she starred in Bus Stop, delivering a performance that critics called vulnerable and authentic, far from the caricature of the dumb blonde. 3 years later, Some Like It Hot became a landmark in film comedy, with Monroe's timing and presence anchoring the movie's chaotic brilliance. Reviews from the period called her work unexpectedly nuanced and central to the film's success. These years tell a story often left out of the legend: Marilyn Monroe as a woman who fought for agency, who studied her craft, and who built her own company to escape the limits set by others. The image remained, but the person behind it was reaching for something more. By the early 1960s, Marilyn Monroe's health was unraveling under the weight of relentless pressure. Insomnia had haunted her for years, leaving her exhausted and desperate for relief. Doctors prescribed Nembutal and chloral hydrate, powerful barbiturates that promised sleep but carried real risks. Pharmacy records and medical testimony confirm she often received overlapping prescriptions from Dr. Ralph Greenson, Dr. Hyman Engelberg, and Dr. Max Jacobson, whose so-called vitamin shots included amphetamines. The result was a dangerous cycle: sedatives to sleep, stimulants to function, and escalating doses as her body built tolerance. On set, the effects were impossible to hide. During the filming of The Misfits in 1961, call sheets document repeated absences and delays. Crew members waited as she struggled to remember lines, her concentration frayed by exhaustion and medication. The strain showed in her performance and in her marriage to Arthur Miller, which collapsed by the film's end. A year later, during Something's Gotta Give, Fox executives grew impatient. Internal memos and trade press headlines detailed her missed days and erratic behavior. In June 1962, the studio suspended her, citing breach of contract. Publicly, she was labeled unreliable. Privately, her dependence on pills and the lack of coordinated care left her more isolated than ever. On May 19, 1962, Marilyn Monroe walked onto the stage at Madison Square Garden, draped in a shimmering, skin-tight gown. In front of 15,000 guests and President John F. Kennedy, she sang Happy Birthday. In a voice so intimate it seemed to erase the distance between herself and the most powerful man in America. The press called it scandalous and unforgettable, the performance of a lifetime. Photographs from that night capture her glowing under the stage lights, every eye fixed on her. Yet behind the applause, Monroe was unraveling. Friends described her as withdrawn, plagued by insomnia, and increasingly unreachable. In the weeks after the event, she retreated into her Brentwood home, her phone calls growing shorter, her circle shrinking. The world saw the ultimate star, radiant, desired, untouchable. But when the curtain fell, she was left with deepening isolation, her health and hope slipping away. That night at the Garden would be her last great public triumph, a dazzling mask just months before everything collapsed. In the early hours of August 5, 1962, Marilyn Monroe's housekeeper, Eunice Murray, found the light still shining under the locked bedroom door in Brentwood. With no answer from inside, she peered through a window and saw Monroe lying motionless on her bed. Murray telephoned Dr. Ralph Greenson, Monroe's psychiatrist, who arrived and broke a window to enter the room. He found Monroe nude, face down, and unresponsive. Dr. Hyman Engelberg, her personal physician, was called next and arrived around 3:50 in the morning. He confirmed that Monroe was dead. It was not until 4:25 in the morning that the Los Angeles Police Department received the call. Deputy Coroner Thomas Noguchi performed the autopsy later that day. Toxicology tests revealed lethal levels of Nembutal and chloral hydrate in her blood and liver, amounts far beyond any therapeutic dose. There were empty pill bottles on the bedside table, but no signs of injury or struggle. The official cause of death was acute barbiturate poisoning, classified as probable suicide. These are the facts as recorded by witnesses, physicians, and the coroner's office. The evidence is precise, clinical, and leaves little room for interpretation. Hollywood still profits from Marilyn Monroe's image, while the industry's treatment of vulnerable stars remains under scrutiny. Her story warns us, behind every glossy icon may be a real person, unseen and unheard. The cost of myth-making isn't just history, it is empathy lost in plain sight.